Hello, English learners, and welcome. I'm your host, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Excited to chat about English learning today. Today, we're tackling something fundamental for your journey in learning English. Unlocking the power of reading.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just a general overview. This deep dive is crafted specifically for you to explore how reading can truly accelerate your English skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our mission in this session is clear and focused on you. We're going to delve into how engaging with English texts can significantly expand your vocabulary, solidify your understanding of grammar, sharpen your comprehension abilities,
Right.
and even give a real boost to your speaking and writing confidence. Think of this as a direct route to becoming more proficient and, at ease with the English language.
And to ensure we're providing you with valuable practical advice, we've gathered resources that directly address the advantages and, well, the practicalities of reading for English learners.
Yeah.
We'll be uncovering how you naturally pick up new words through context, how grammar seems to become intuitive, how your ability to understand improves, and how all of this directly benefits your speaking and writing. We're not dealing with abstract theories here, but with actionable insights you can start using immediately. Okay, so to kick things off, what are some of the core ways reading actually makes a difference in how we learn English?
Well, let's look at a couple of key mechanisms.
Yeah.
The first is the remarkable way reading helps you build your vocabulary,
Okay.
instead of relying solely on memorizing lists of words, which, let's face it, can be tedious.
So tedious.
Reading introduces new vocabulary organically, embedded within the natural flow of sentences. It's just a much more effective and engaging way for words to, you know,
Absolutely. Think about when you're reading a story and come across a sentence like, the little girl was ecstatic when she opened her birthday presents. Even if ecstatic is a new word for you, the context birthday presents, the overall positive tone gives you a strong hint. You can probably guess it means something like very happy or thrilled.
Precisely. And what's really interesting is how reading contributes to building what we call your semantic network, basically, the web of connections
Yeah.
between words in your brain.
Semantic network. Okay.
When you encounter words like happy, joyful, excited, delighted, and ecstatic in various texts, your brain starts to recognize these subtle shades of meaning and their relationships to one another almost without conscious effort.
Ah.
It's like your brain is making these connections behind the scenes, enriching your understanding in a very natural way.
That's fascinating, this idea of the brain building its own internal dictionary through context. Now, what about grammar? I know that can be a real sticking point for many learners. How does reading help with those often intimidating rules?
Yes. That's where the second crucial benefit comes in,
Yeah.
improving your grasp of grammar. While grammar textbooks can sometimes feel, well, detached from real language use, when you consistently read well-formed sentences in books, articles, and stories, your brain begins to internalize the correct structures of English
Yeah.
at a subconscious level. It's like your brain is constantly observing and absorbing the patterns of the language.
Can you give us a specific example of how that works?
Sure. Consider the sentence. They have been working on this project for several months.
Okay.
You might not be consciously analyzing the present perfect continuous tense, but through repeated exposure to sentences structured in this way, your brain starts to recognize the pattern and understand when and how to use it correctly. It's about pattern recognition. The brain is incredibly good at identifying and learning from these recurring structures.
So it's less about consciously memorizing rules and more about your brain picking up the patterns through repeated exposure, like osmosis.
Exactly. You're seeing prepositions like under, over, and between, articles like a, the, and an, and various verb tenses all used correctly in diverse contexts. Over time, this implicit learning really reinforces your understanding and improves your own speaking and writing without you having to constantly recall abstract grammar rules. It just sort of happens.
Okay, so vocabulary expansion through context and this almost automatic absorption of grammar are huge benefits. But reading must also play a big role in simply understanding what you're reading, right? Comprehension itself.
Absolutely. Enhancing your comprehension skills is another significant advantage. Reading isn't just about recognizing individual words. It's about grasping the flow of ideas, understanding different viewpoints, and recognizing emotions conveyed in the text. When you engage with a written piece, you're actively training your brain to process information in English.
That makes perfect sense. Even if you encounter a few unfamiliar words, you can often still grasp the main idea, can't you?
Precisely. Imagine you're reading a news article about, say, advances in artificial intelligence.
Right.
You might not know every single technical term, but by focusing on the overall arguments and key examples, you can still understand the main points the author is making. You learn to effectively use clues like titles, headings, recurring keywords, and even the writer's tone to infer meaning.
Ah, okay.
This ability to understand the gist, even without knowing every word, is a vital skill in real-life communication.
So it's about training your brain to be an active and effective interpreter of language. Now, I'm really curious about how all this reading we're doing actually translates into becoming a better speaker and writer. How does that connection work?
That's a fantastic question, and it highlights a very direct link. Reading provides you with a constant stream of examples of how to structure sentences, how to organize your thoughts into coherent paragraphs, and how to connect ideas smoothly.
Hmm.
It's like building an internal model or template for effective communication.
Can you give us a tangible example of that?
Sure. Think about reading a novel with engaging dialogue. You're observing firsthand how native English speakers construct their sentences in conversation, how they ask and answer questions, and how they express their opinions and feelings.
Right, you see it in action.
This provides an invaluable resource when you need to express yourself in spoken English.
Ah, so it's like building a mental bank of natural conversational exchanges. You just absorb how people talk.
Exactly. And the more you read, the more you become familiar with common phrases and natural expressions. For instance, instead of always thinking, I'm very hungry,
Hmm.
you might encounter and then start using the more natural sounding phrase, I'm starving.
Okay, yeah.
When it comes to writing, reading exposes you to different writing styles, teaches you how to use punctuation effectively, and gives you a sense of how to make your own writing more interesting and impactful.
That really resonates. You see good writing in action, and it subtly influences your own writing style. It just sort of rubs off on you.
Yeah.
Now, there's another dimension to language learning that I think is really important, the cultural side.
You're absolutely right, and that's the cultural aspect. Reading acts as a powerful gateway to understanding English-speaking cultures. Through books, articles, and stories, you gain insights into the traditions, customs, and everyday life in countries where English is the primary language.
For example, what kind of cultural nuances might you pick up through reading, like subtle things?
Well, reading a contemporary novel set in Australia might introduce you to slang terms used in everyday conversation,
Okay.
or give you a sense of the laid-back Aussie culture. Similarly, reading articles about current events in the UK can familiarize you with British social issues and perspectives.
Hmm.
Even something as simple as a children's book can offer a glimpse into family dynamics or typical school experiences in an English-speaking country. Like seeing how Thanksgiving is portrayed or what afternoon tea culture is really like in London.
So it's not just about the mechanics of the language, it's about understanding the people who speak it, how they live.
Precisely. Language and culture are deeply interwoven. By reading widely, you develop a more nuanced understanding of how people in English-speaking cultures think, behave, and interact, which ultimately makes you a more culturally aware and effective communicator.
Okay, so the benefits of reading are clear vocab, grammar, comprehension, culture. But how does all of this help with the practical side of having conversations and expressing yourself clearly in English, day-to-day stuff?
That's the next logical step, isn't it? Consistent reading isn't just an academic pursuit. It directly enhances your ability to communicate effectively in real-world English situations.
Right.
The continuous exposure to sentence structures, diverse vocabulary, and natural phrasing all contribute to more fluent and confident communication.
We touched on building a mental library earlier. Can you elaborate on how reading specifically contributes to that for speaking? Like, how does it make conversations easier?
Think about the dialogues you encounter in books and articles. You're essentially getting a front row seat to how native speakers actually converse. You see the difference between informal greetings like, hey, what's up, and more formal ones such as, good morning, how are you today?
Okay.
You learn natural ways to ask for assistance. Excuse me, could you help me with this? Versus maybe more direct and sometimes less polite, help me with this.
Right.
And you pick up on appropriate responses and conversational fillers like saying sounds great instead of just that is good, that make your speech sound more natural.
Ah, the little things.
Exactly. By seeing these interactions play out in written form, you subconsciously absorb these patterns and become more adept at structuring your own sentences in a natural and idiomatic way.
So it's about developing an intuitive sense for the rhythm and flow of natural English conversation. And that, in turn, must lead to speaking more smoothly and confidently, right? Less pausing to think.
Absolutely. Fluency in speaking isn't just about having a large vocabulary. It's about being able to access and use that vocabulary efficiently, without excessive hesitation or pausing to translate in your head. Reading in English helps train your brain to think directly in English,
Thinking in English, the big goal.
which significantly streamlines your speaking process.
How does that shift from translating to thinking in English actually happen through reading? What's the mechanism?
Well, when you consistently read English texts, your brain becomes increasingly comfortable with English grammatical structures and common expressions. So, when you want to articulate a thought, instead of first formulating it in your native language and then translating word for word,
Which is slow.
which is slow and often leads to unnatural phrasing, your mind starts to generate the English phrasing directly, drawing upon the vast amount of language you've encountered through reading.
Can you illustrate that with an example?
Sure. Imagine you've come across the phrase, "I couldn't believe my eyes," numerous times in your reading.
Okay.
Later, when you see something surprising, that exact phrase might just pop into your mind naturally without you needing to consciously translate an equivalent phrase from your first language.
Ah, it's just there.
It becomes readily available for use in your spoken English, making your delivery smoother and more automatic. You're essentially internalizing these linguistic shortcuts through repeated exposure.
That makes perfect sense. It's like your brain is creating these direct pathways in English. Now, I know many learners are also focused on improving their pronunciation. Can reading contribute to that aspect of language learning as well? I mean, it's silent mostly.
Yes, definitely, and particularly through the practice of reading aloud. It's a highly effective way to familiarize yourself with the sounds of English and to develop a more natural speaking rhythm.
Reading aloud, okay.
When you vocalize the words you're reading, you're actively engaging your mouth and vocal cords in producing English sounds. This physical act helps to reinforce correct pronunciation and makes it easier to recall how words sound. Plus, hearing yourself speak English can build confidence and help you identify areas for improvement.
And it's not just about pronouncing individual words correctly, is it? There's more to sounding natural.
Precisely. English has its own unique patterns of stress and intonation. The music of the language, really.
Yeah, the rhythm.
Reading aloud helps you become more attuned to these subtle but important aspects. You start to notice which syllables within a word are typically stressed,
Right.
and how the pitch of your voice naturally rises and falls to convey meaning. Take a sentence like, "She was absolutely thrilled to receive the award."
Yeah.
Reading it aloud can help you feel where the emphasis naturally falls, perhaps on absolutely and thrilled, contributing to a more natural and understandable speaking style.
We've mentioned reading along with audiobooks before. How does that enhance pronunciation specifically?
Oh, it's an invaluable technique. By listening to a native speaker narrate a text and simultaneously following along with the written words, you can actively try to mimic their pronunciation, their rhythm, and even their tone of voice.
Like shadowing.
It's exactly like shadowing, but with the text right there. It's like having a personal pronunciation coach guiding you through the nuances of spoken English. You can pause, rewind, and repeat as many times as needed to really nail down the sounds and intonation patterns.
So the more you actively engage with both the written and spoken forms of English, the more your brain becomes attuned to its specific sounds and rhythms. What about that ultimate goal for many English learners to be able to think directly in English? Can reading really play a role in achieving that?
Absolutely. Consistent and frequent reading familiarizes your brain with English sentence structures and common expressions to such an extent that you gradually begin to bypass the need for mental translation.
It just becomes automatic.
More and more so. When you encounter a phrase you've seen countless times in your reading, such as, "What do you think about it?" "What?" It becomes an automatic part of your internal English dialogue.
So instead of thinking in your native language and then having to mentally translate it into English before speaking or understanding, the English just comes directly to mind.
Exactly. You've encountered and processed these phrases so many times in their English form through reading that they become readily accessible thought patterns. This direct processing significantly accelerates both your comprehension and your ability to express yourself spontaneously in English.
This is all incredibly encouraging. But with such a vast amount of material available to read, books, articles, blogs, everything, where does one even begin? How do you choose the right things to read to maximize your learning?
That's a critical question. Selecting appropriate reading material is essential. If the texts are too challenging, it can lead to frustration and demotivation.
Yeah, you just give up.
Right. But if they're too simple, you might not be learning much new. The key is to find that sweet spot where the material aligns with your current English proficiency level and genuinely sparks your interest.
Let's break down the process of choosing the right reading material. What types of texts are generally suitable for different levels of learners? Say for beginners.
For beginners, typically around the A1 and A2 levels, graded readers are an excellent resource.
Graded readers, can you explain those quickly?
Sure. They're books specifically written or adapted for English language learners, using simplified vocabulary and grammatical structures tailored to different proficiency levels. They often come marked with a level, like A1, A2, B1, etc.
Got it. So they're designed for learners.
Exactly. Short stories that use everyday language are also fantastic for building confidence and getting a sense of narrative flow. And don't underestimate the value of children's books. They often feature clear, straightforward sentences and basic vocabulary.
Children's books. Okay.
Additionally, comics and graphic novels can be particularly helpful as the visuals provide crucial context, aiding understanding even if you don't know every single word.
The pictures help tell the story.
Definitely.
And what about learners who are progressing, say, around the A2 level, maybe moving towards B1? What might be suitable for them?
At the A2 level, you can start exploring slightly more complex materials, such as adapted versions of classic literary works like Alice in Wonderland or The Little Prince.
Ah, simplified classics.
Yes, these adaptations retain the essence of the original stories, but use simpler language to make them more accessible. A good general guideline, really for any level, is to aim for reading material where you understand approximately 80% of the vocabulary.
The 80% rule.
Yeah. If you find yourself constantly reaching for the dictionary for almost every sentence, it's probably wise to choose something a little less challenging to maintain your engagement and comprehension. You want a bit of challenge, but not constant struggle.
That 80% understanding rule is a really helpful benchmark. Now, you also emphasize the importance of choosing topics that genuinely interest you. Why is that such a significant factor? It seems obvious, but...
Because reading becomes a much more enjoyable and sustainable activity when you're truly engaged with the subject matter.
Right, motivation.
Think about your personal hobbies and passions. Are you a sports enthusiast? Try reading articles or news reports about your favorite teams or athletes, maybe Messi or Ronaldo if you like football. Are you fascinated by travel? Look for travel blogs or articles about different destinations. Do you have a passion for music? Read song lyrics and explore articles about your favorite artists or genres. If you're curious about science or history, seek out introductory books or accessible articles on those topics.
So if I'm a huge fan of cooking, I should be looking for English cookbooks or food blogs.
Exactly. You'll be learning new vocabulary related to a topic you already have a strong connection to, which makes the learning process much more motivating and feel less like a chore. It connects the learning to something you already love.
Makes sense.
And a valuable tip here is to actively search for blogs and websites dedicated to your particular interests. Often the language used in these online platforms tends to be more informal and accessible for language learners compared to, say, dense academic texts.
That's a really smart approach, leveraging your existing interest to fuel your language learning. What about the different types of reading materials that are available? Should learners focus on just one type, like books, or explore a variety? Mix it up.
It's definitely beneficial to explore a variety of reading materials. Different types of texts offer unique learning opportunities.
Like what?
For instance, books are excellent for building a broader vocabulary and understanding more complex sentence structures and narrative flow. Blogs and online articles often expose you to more informal, conversational English and current events.
Right, more casual language.
Magazines can provide insights into real-world English usage across various topics. And, as we discussed earlier, audiobooks, when combined with the written text, are invaluable for improving pronunciation and listening comprehension.
So maybe a learner could read a chapter of a novel and then listen to the audiobook version of that same chapter to reinforce what they've read and work on their pronunciation.
That's an outstanding strategy. It allows you to connect the written form of the language with its spoken form in a very direct and effective way. Don't hesitate to switch between different types of reading materials to keep things interesting and to target different aspects of your English language development. Variety can really enhance your learning experience and prevent boredom.
Okay, so we have a better understanding of what to read, level, interest, variety. Now, let's talk about the practicalities of making reading a consistent habit in our daily lives, even when we're busy. How do you actually do it?
That's where intentionally integrating reading into your daily routine becomes crucial. Consistency, even in small increments, is far more effective than sporadic long sessions. Little and often really does make a significant difference over time.
What are some concrete steps listeners can take to build that reading habit, like first steps?
Setting specific daily or weekly reading goals is a great starting point. Make sure these goals are realistic and achievable for your current lifestyle.
Realistic is key, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're new to reading in English, perhaps aim for just 10 minutes of reading each day or to finish one short story each week. As you become more comfortable, you can gradually increase the amount of time or the length of the text you're tackling.
Keeping a simple reading log where you note the date, the title of what you read, and maybe a few new words you encountered can also be very helpful for tracking your progress and staying motivated, seeing what you've accomplished.
Can you give us some examples of realistic reading goals for someone who's just starting out, like super concrete?
Certainly, a beginner might set a daily goal to read just one page from a graded reader. Or they could aim to read one short news article from a simplified English news website, like News and Levels or BBC Learning English each morning.
Okay, one article, manageable.
Another goal could be to finish one beginner-level English book each month, or to actively learn and review, say, 5 new vocabulary words after each reading session. And definitely write these goals down or set reminders on your phone. It significantly increases your likelihood of sticking to them.
Those are really practical and manageable goals. What are some other ways to make reading a more ingrained habit, like fitting it into the day? Try to associate reading with an existing daily routine. This is called habit stacking. For example, if you always have a coffee break in the morning, make it a habit to read a short article during that time.
Link it to coffee. Got it.
Or if you have some downtime before bed, make reading a few pages of a book your way to wind down instead of scrolling. Leveraging technology can also be incredibly helpful. E-readers and apps like Kindle, Ling provide convenient access to a vast library of English reading materials right on your phone or tablet.
So use your devices for learning.
Yes, and listening to audiobooks while following along with the text on your device is another excellent way to combine reading with other activities, like commuting or doing chores.
Creating a conducive reading environment seems like it would also make a difference, right? Where you read.
Absolutely. Make your reading time more enjoyable by finding a quiet and comfortable space with good lighting where you can focus without distractions. Keep a dictionary or a dictionary app and maybe a notebook and pen within easy reach.
Be prepared.
And it's definitely a good idea to minimize interruptions. Maybe turn off notifications on your phone or let family or roommates know you'd like some uninterrupted reading time, even if it's just for 15 minutes.
Now, for those who often feel like they simply don't have enough time in their day, the "I'm too busy" problem.
Ah, yes. Look for those small, often overlooked pockets of time throughout your day. Instead of mindlessly scrolling through social media while waiting in line for an appointment or for your order at a restaurant, try keeping a book or your e-reader handy and read a page or two. Those minutes add up.
Use the waiting time.
If you commute by public transportation, that travel time can be a fantastic opportunity to get some reading done. Even dedicating just 5 or 10 minutes here and there can accumulate into a significant amount of reading over the course of a week. And as we mentioned, reading before sleep can be a relaxing and productive way to end the day.
Okay, so we've got strategies for choosing what to read and how to make it a habit. But what happens when you actually sit down to read and you inevitably encounter those challenges that can make learning feel difficult?
Right.
The roadblocks.
That's a realistic expectation. There will be hurdles. One of the most common is encountering unfamiliar vocabulary. It can sometimes feel overwhelming, but there are effective techniques to navigate this without getting discouraged.
What's the first strategy for dealing with a word you don't know? Don't just panic.
Right, don't panic. Try to infer its meaning from the surrounding context first. Before immediately reaching for a dictionary, look at the words and sentences around the unknown word. Often the context will provide clues to its meaning through synonyms, explanations, or the overall situation being described.
Like being a detective again.
Exactly. For instance, if you read, "The sun was so bright and dazzling it hurt his eyes." Even if you're not sure about dazzling, the word bright and the fact that it hurt his eyes strongly suggests it means something like intensely bright or brilliant.
So, you become a bit of a language detective, looking for clues within the text itself. What are some specific tips for using context clues effectively? How do you do it?
Pay close attention to any words or phrases that seem to be used in apposition, or that offer a definition or explanation of the unknown word right there in the text. Look for signal words like "that is," meaning, in other words, or examples that might clarify the term. Also, try to understand the general idea of the sentence and the paragraph as a whole. The surrounding information can often shed light on the meaning of an unfamiliar word. Don't just focus on the single word in isolation.
And when is it the right time to actually consult a dictionary? You can't guess everything.
True. While contextual clues are powerful, a dictionary is still a valuable tool. Use it wisely, though. My advice: read the sentence and the surrounding sentences first. Try your best to guess the meaning from context.
Try first.
And only look up words that seem absolutely crucial to understanding the main idea, or words that appear repeatedly throughout the text. Don't look up every single unknown word or you'll kill the flow. When you do use a dictionary, especially as you progress, try to use an English dictionary, like Cambridge or Oxford online,
Why English?
because it encourages you to think in English and build your understanding within the target language rather than constantly switching back to your native language for translation. It keeps your brain in English mode.
That's a really insightful point, using an English dictionary to stay within the English language thinking process. Okay, what's another common challenge that English learners face when reading, besides tricky words?
Another frequent challenge is simply a lack of motivation or feeling like they don't have enough time to dedicate to reading. Life gets busy.
Yeah, the motivation dip.
To overcome this, it's crucial to make the reading experience enjoyable, as we've said, and to find ways to integrate it seamlessly into your existing routine, even if it's just tiny bits of time.
We've already discussed finding interesting materials and setting achievable goals. Are there any other tactics for staying motivated when you just don't feel like it?
Yes. If you're feeling a slump in motivation, don't feel pressured to tackle lengthy or complex texts immediately. Give yourself a break. Revisit something lighter and more engaging that you truly enjoy, like a favorite comic book or a short travel blog about a place you dream of visiting. Permission to read easy stuff is important.
Right, make it fun again.
And as we mentioned earlier, even breaking down reading into very short sessions, just 5 to 10 minutes during those spare moments, can help maintain momentum and make the task feel less daunting. Set a goal like reading just 2 paragraphs or 1 news headline.
Micro reading sessions.
Exactly. Celebrating small reading milestones can also be a great way to stay motivated. Acknowledge when you finish a short story or learn a certain number of new words. Give yourself a little mental pat on the back.
That focus on small, manageable steps seems really key to overcoming that feeling of being overwhelmed. What about when you encounter really long pieces of text, a whole chapter, a long article that seem intimidating to tackle?
Long texts can definitely feel like a significant hurdle. The most effective strategy here is to break them down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Chunk it down.
Read 1 paragraph at a time, maybe, and then take a moment to summarize the main idea of that paragraph in your own words, either mentally or by jotting it down. Use a highlighter or take notes to mark key sentences and focus on grasping the central ideas before getting bogged down in minor details.
Focus on the main points first.
Yes, if you're reading a longer story or book, perhaps set a goal to read just 1 page or 1 section each day. For example, if a story is 5 pages long, read 1 page per day for 5 days. Over time, those small daily efforts will lead to the completion of the entire text without feeling overwhelming.
And you also mentioned the benefits of reading aloud and taking notes as strategies for tackling more challenging or longer texts. How does that help specifically with long texts?
Exactly. Reading aloud, even just sections, helps you to engage with the text on a different level. You're physically producing the language, which can improve your rhythm and pronunciation, and importantly, aid in retention and focus when the text is long.
It keeps you engaged.
Yes. Taking notes as you read, even simple things like jotting down the main idea of each paragraph, maybe 3 new words per page, and trying to use them in a sentence later, or writing a very short summary after a section, can significantly enhance your comprehension and memory of the material, especially over longer stretches.
Okay.
And don't hesitate to reread difficult sections, or even the entire text a second time if needed. You'll often be surprised at how much more you understand on the subsequent reading. Repetition helps solidify understanding.
These are all such...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To reiterate, reading is an incredibly powerful tool for English language learners. It significantly expands your vocabulary by exposing you to new words in natural contexts. It improves your understanding of grammar through consistent exposure to correct sentence structures, almost like absorbing it. It sharpens your comprehension skills, enabling you to better understand both written and spoken English. It strengthens your writing and speaking abilities by providing you with models of effective communication and increasing your confidence in expressing yourself. And let's not forget, it offers invaluable cultural insights into the English-speaking world.
And the most important message you'd want to leave our listener with today, if they remember one thing.
Consistency is the cornerstone of progress, really. Even dedicating a small amount of time to reading each day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, will yield significant results over time. Remember that language learning is a continuous journey, and every page you read, every word you learn, is a step forward on that path to fluency. Don't underestimate the power of small, consistent steps.
So, for you, our listener, we have a final question. What English text will you choose to read next? Take a moment now to think about a specific book, article, or short story that you can pick up and start engaging with today or maybe tomorrow.
And consider this final thought. By intentionally focusing your reading on topics that already ignite your curiosity and passion, things you genuinely love, how might you unlock an even more accelerated and enjoyable path to English language mastery than you ever thought possible?